Good morning. Welcome back to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host, and with me today, special guest Frank Borger-Gilligan. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Borger,
yeah,
good.
Right. Thank you.
Borger.
Assistant Commissioner of the Tennessee Securities Division. And Frank deals with a lot of different securities issues, and fraud, of course, is one of the biggest concerns. And we've talked before on the program about those people that might be at risk for certain things. So we've talked, for instance, baby boomers. This is one of those areas. Millennials now with this type of cryptocurrency. And one of the things, in fact, we were talking about ICOs, initial coin offerings, and what those are. And then one of the things there, Frank, you said many of these are fraudulent.
Many of them are, yeah. Again, I want to stress that not all of them are, and they're a great tool for certain people to use to raise capital. But with any new technology, especially when you're factoring in the success of Bitcoin or the hype surrounding Bitcoin and other more popular cryptocurrencies, there are going to be scam artists looking to take advantage of that. Same thing with disasters. There's a natural disaster, and there'll be scams that pop up looking to take advantage of people who want to donate money. So yeah, there are a lot of fraudulent ICOs out there looking to take advantage of people who want to get in on the cryptocurrency craze. Sure, you've had many questions about should you invest in it or not. So that's, again, it's one of the areas that, as with any investment, you really need to understand.
And how would people, and of course Tennessee Securities Division, this is an area where they would be able to call to maybe find out if they've got questions about an ICO?
Absolutely, yeah, you can always call the Tennessee Securities Division, and we're doing a lot of work in this area. We're working with other departments in the state and with federal agencies as well. We're doing a lot of investor education right now on cryptocurrencies so that people have the tools that they need to understand should they invest.
Right. And this is one of those areas with regard to cryptocurrencies where everybody's talking about Bitcoin. Of course, that's the one most known. But how many?
I believe, and it's probably, the number's probably a lot higher, but I saw a number the other day that it was 1,600. Wow. And a couple weeks past, it's probably 1,800 by this point. Really? But yeah, there are a lot of ICOs out there. Yeah,
this is one of those areas, again, when you're looking, if you're looking to find out more about cryptocurrency, or if you want to, one of those areas really study, you need to do a lot of reading. There's some great articles. I think Yahoo Finance did one, 74 questions on Bitcoin. There's a number of different pieces. If you're interested in finding out more, a lot of educational pieces available through the Tennessee Securities Division as well. So you'd want to check that out. General, one of the things here, let's see where it was, general ICO stats, 94% of regulators viewed ICOs and cryptocurrency at high risk for fraud. So this is one of those areas relatively new. And as with that, when financial technology, with most things, first that comes into being, then the problems start to come up around it, and then you all have to get involved.
Yes, and as regulators, we are always struggling to catch up with technology. Not just with this, with anything. Regulators are always going to be a step behind. Yeah, it's one of those areas that is ripe for fraud. And again, it's because of the hype involved surrounding it. It just lends itself to someone who wants to create an ICO and maybe try to lure people in thinking they're investing in Bitcoin when they're not, or just creating a flat-out Ponzi scheme in the form of an ICO.
And this is one of those areas. Typically, as with most investments, if it sounds too good to be true, you want to even look even that much closer. Typically, many times this is the case. When it comes to understanding whether or not this is something, again, to invest in, can't stress enough about buyer beware. This is one of those areas you can't do enough research, really. Don't just think, oh, this thing is going up, therefore I can jump in and I'm going to make money on it. That's not the way these things typically work. As we were talking about, and as Frank mentioned, with Bitcoin alone, at highs, it's less than half of what it was at its high. So imagine if you purchased this, put real money into this at that time. Well, guess what? That money, half of that money or more than half that money is gone, and in a very short amount of time did that happen. And will it come back? And that's the other part. When you're investing, and I'm going to bring a little bit of an example or comparison in. If you're investing in stocks in companies, I want you to think of something. This is an analogy I use because it's one that we can all relate to. You might remember back with 9/11. Most people remember where they were and what they were doing at the time of 9/11, right? For me, I was on vacation in Florida, sitting in a condo, and wow, watching what happened with the towers, glued to the TV set, horrified as with most people in the country. But guess what happened at the end of the day? All right, I got hungry. Right? The family gets hungry, and we're going to go out to dinner. And we go to a restaurant and we have dinner. And guess what? There's a lot of other people out there having dinner. And all those companies, and after dinner, by the way, so you go to the restaurant, you've got all the different things that are supplied at a restaurant, all the companies that provide that. And then on the way home, we stop at the store to get some things, and then we stop and get gas for the car, and then back again. So think of all the different companies supplying all the different products and services that we use that day. And even on one of the worst days, and in the days that followed, with the tremendous upheaval it caused in our financial system, still, guess what? Those companies are still in business. They're still providing those goods and services. We're still buying those things. There's money being generated. There's value being, transferred person to person here. That's the stock market. Okay, that's what's going on there. So if you're invested, and this was one of the things, investing in the stock market, it's not about investing in just one company necessarily. That's a little bit risky, even with the best of companies. But diversity gives you more safety. So if I've got, for instance, 10,000 companies in my portfolio, it's going to be a lot safer for me. Some of those companies are probably going to go out of business, and others coming in that I'm going to add to that portfolio. That's the difference here. Something known with regard to investing in the market. And a lot of people think that's pretty speculative, and the way you invest, of course, can make it more so. But this is where cryptocurrencies is a whole different animal in terms of how that works and the volatility here. So when we see half my money dropping in a cryptocurrency, is it going to come back? I don't know. I don't know what made it go up to 20,000 in the first place, right? This is a lot of people kind of agreeing on a value that is pretty arbitrary. So and pretty subjective. With regard to stocks, though, I know those companies are going to stay in business. So when I have different events that cause the market to, to drop, bear markets, for instance, like 2000 through 2002, when the market dropped about 45%, or back in from October of 2007 to March of 2009 when it dropped over 50%. Yes, guess what? It did come back. In fact, we know those things are going to happen. So we don't know what the market's going to do over the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, but we know long term we're going to see growth, and it's because of what's behind it in these companies that we're investing in. This is the difference with cryptocurrency. Here, we don't really know what that's going to look like down the road. We don't have that same assurance. There's not a history here. There's not even something solid that we've got in our hands that we can figure, okay, this is going to act in this way over time. Right,
exactly right. It's very new technology. We don't know where it's going. Mm-hmm. There are over 1,600 right now. Assuming it becomes more mainstream mm-hmm. and more accepted in terms of a legitimate currency. Right. All 1,600 will not survive. Right. There'll likely be a small handful that do. And how is that valued? And will it eventually have some form of regulation mm-hmm.
Behind it? Right. And this is one of the areas I think with regard to one of the attractions with cryptocurrency is it's not regulated, which means people that don't want the government involved in some way, this is, for them. Now, who are some of the people, okay, they're legitimate people, but who are some of the maybe illegitimate people that might like that? And this goes to, we've got anti-money laundering courses I have to take every year and stay up with, and all the different scams and ways that these criminals are basically trying to take ill-begotten goods and turn it into legitimate funds. And cryptocurrency is one of those tools for that.
Absolutely. And there are a couple reasons for that. It's extremely hard to trace the money mm-hmm. or the currency. It's not backed by a government. It's not backed by a financial institution. So it's very easy to hide funds and move funds around mm-hmm. in the crypto world.
Yeah. And this is one of those areas, so when you're looking again at how these things work and whether to invest, but also understanding some of the different fraudulent investments, such as, I hate to use the term investment, when it comes to this. There's a thing called speculating, and which would be gambling to me. This is where it's pure chance in my mind at this point. This thing may, as you're saying, Frank, it may turn into something more, regulated, or at the very least more something we can count on, and it'll wash out. Most of those will go away, and there may be, I don't know, a half a dozen or a dozen that have survived that are, such as a Bitcoin possibly. Right. But even then, that value piece is going to be something that that people need to be aware of. Just as with if you're starting with an IPO, is that company going to be around? If you're starting with any type of investment, when you're looking, for instance, in investing in a small company, there are penny stocks. There are a lot of different things out there that are highly speculative in nature. These are companies just getting started maybe, and then maybe in things that I know cannabis was one of those that was, as that started to gain some legitimacy in terms of its medicinal uses, questionably maybe, is that, are these companies that you can invest in that are going to grow? Well, not all of them are going to be around, and it's even more likely that small companies are going to wash out. So we're going to talk some more about fraudulent ICOs, but also cryptocurrency. And this is one of those areas when it comes to retirement, IRAs. We're going to talk a little bit about how there are a lot of different ways that people will say, oh, well, you can, use your IRA money to invest in this, and the dangers that go with that, and some of the regulatory issues as well. So join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.
You've been